Hello and welcome to this video on the last part of the newsletter. In this video we're going to do the last small details that has to be done before the newsletter can be sent. We will create the newsletter and we will send a test to some people. This video is the last thing you do. There's 2 other videos you need to look at before you can do the features that we're talking about in this video. So if you haven't looked at those, please do, and then come back to this one. So we created the content that we need, and we've added the text that GDPR demands from us. So I'm just going to do a quick go back and look at the things that we've done. So we created a page or a section with the necessary information in, and we have a newsletter, we have the confirmation page, we have the unsubscribe page, and at the front we also have the subscription block, which is currently at the bottom. I've added 2 of them, so you'll know why, because or if you looked at the previous videos, it's always smart to add some text, as for example title, subscribe to our newsletter, and then a short introduction, more than 3 words, why people should subscribe and what you will provide for them. There's also of course possibility to create a news article and at greater length describe what you use your newsletter for. But we've already gone through that in the previous video, so let's just skip on to the newsletter. First of all, let's just go one step back. Let's go to the confirmation page, because we've gone through the emails and everything that has to be there. But once the person accepts the confirmation page and clicks on the I confirm I want to join the newsletter, he will be routed back to this page. And as you can see, this page does not contain much information. So a smart thing to do is just add thank you, for example, and give the person some more information. This is our news section. If you want to join us on social media, you can also do that here, and welcome kind of things you would like for them to see. And that's about it. Now let's get back to the newsletter. When you start creating a newsletter, you will probably create one or send one once a month. And there's always some information in the newsletter that is at the same place that will never change. So I recommend creating one base newsletter. You can call it whatever you want, and just remember that the name in URL will stick. So if you call it newsletter 1 and you just copy paste this field into the same folder, it will be called will be named newsletter 1 2. Most users will not notice this, but for professionality it's always smart to just go in and change the name to 2, and probably the same at this address. It's really just for the extra courtesy to the recipient. Now we've added the name, we've added the ingress, or we can add the ingress, but I always recommend in editing the newsletter in the all properties mode. That's because there's a lot of small subtexts that we have to add here. In the newsletter there's always something we have to keep, and one of them is the newsletter unsubscribe page, which always will be attached to it. Remember, do not change the mail sender, and we will have to add the logo text, and the logo title is Norway, and the country name just the same as it is on the front page logo. I can show you one just to show you what I mean. The same logo on top is the same that we add to the newsletter. So when you say logo subtext and logo title, we are talking about this and this text. This is something as you just add one time, and it's part of the base line. We also have the social medias, and the social medias also will only be added one time usually. And if we go to the social media block area, we can drag in Twitter, we can drag in Instagram, and we can drag in Facebook. Usually I would recommend creating a different set of social media block links for the newsletter, because maybe you want to add a little bit more text. It'll be a little bit more specific than the embassy on Facebook or the ambassador on Facebook. And remember, if you change the title of the block, it would also change it everywhere else that you use it. So a smart thing would be maybe to create a folder underneath the India section on the To World, call it newsletter, and add information to that folder. But in my case, I'll just drag in whatever I have. Let's see, we also have the ambassador on Twitter, and this will now be added to the area. You can add contact information. I would recommend adding that information to the ingress field, or you will have to take use of the old block fields. The old blocks with the contact information is not available anymore, so if you want to add those before I change this field to a text field, you will have to contact Webdesk and we will sort you out very quickly. Links is also links that you add to maybe some other locations that you want it to be, and you also have the email subject field. The email subject field is the field that you get when you, let's see if I can find my email here. This is the subject field. So if you add text here, it will be added to this field. This will have been here, this will add there. And that's not one of the things you need to add in the base, but it's always smart to just enter text here or fill this one out if you feel the need to do that. We are still developing a little bit on the newsletter, and it's within 2019 it should change to a better setup than what it is now, but this is what we have, so this is what we get. Now let's get back to on-page editing and see if something happened. No, nothing has happened, but if you publish, things will happen. And as you can see, the reason that we work with this field within the all properties area is that it doesn't look quite right before you enter all the information that you have and press the preview mode button. That's because this is an email that's going to be sent out to people, so it has to be coded in a special way to be able to be received by all the different recipients email systems that works around the world, and that's why it looks a little bit weird, and that's why it's set up a little bit weird. We can always drag in articles. Let's say that this is our base, the number 2. Let's call it base, and just publish it so it changes in the structure, and we delete the one that we have from before. This one is always smart to just set manage expiration so it's not available to other people, and we will just copy and paste it. Now we have a base 2. It's also expired, but we don't want it to be expired, so we go up and remove expiration, click save, and we change it to newsletter 1, the first. Let's go and change the URL. There we go, and we click publish. Now people at the web page will now be able to see this one, but it's something people don't normally look for, so it's not a problem if somebody stumbles over this page. But let's go in and let's find some articles, some news. Let's drag in some business news, business in India. And as you can see, it looks a little bit weird, but that will change when we publish it and present it as it should be. And we can continue, Santi straightforward, Prenam, we can go and we can drag in some Mumbai news. Let's see if they have any. Yes, they do. And we'll drag in some a reasonable amount of information. I would not recommend going above 6 or 8 articles, depending on the amount of text you have added to them. It's always smart to add some images too, and the images will show if they have any in the articles. So let's see if we can find something that I know has an image in it. Nope. Has to be a news or one of the old article types, a news, information, and event, or the new one, core article. Let's see if we can find something with some images in, or we can just try to see if there we go. As you can see, it changed view pretty drastically when I click publish, and that's the reason why I like to present this in all properties mode. Since I'm doing this in a test environment, the images won't show, and there should be an image here, as you can see, and it will present as a square on the front, or let's say it will look okay in the view for the user. This is where you add an ingress, hello and welcome in some way, and that's about it. Click publish now. We have now created a newsletter. So what do we do now? This is the part where we have to keep our system straight. Go to all properties, just make sure that you've added all the information that you need to add. You can add some titles, you can add some contact information, you can add more information that we've have added now, but this is just to show you how it looks. And now we go over to the sending process. And we do that by clicking on the same location as we do when changing to on-page all properties, but we click on newsletter details. The system also shows you a page that we normally don't use. So this is probably the first time you see it. First of all is number 1 is add recipients. Number 2 is if you want to remove some specific recipients, you can do that. I've never heard of anybody who wants to do that, because if they want themselves removed from the recipient list, they will unsubscribe to the newsletter field. And number 3 is test. This is an important one. You can add your own or others or both email addresses here, and click test, and you will receive a test newsletter. The last one is send the newsletter. So yeah, I can also do the sides fields. This is a field that shows you the status of what's happening. It's not very precise, but the system does not send out the newsletter. We're sending the work and workload to an external system called MailGrid, and that's why this status field does not really show the work that is being done, because it's based on if the Epi server or the Norway portal is doing the job and sending out all the emails. The preview is something you can click and preview the newsletter in an external web browser, and there's also some different actions you can take. But let's start with number 1. Add from one of your recipient list is the one that you're going to click on, and you can find your list by scrolling down, or if you're lucky enough, you have the one on the top. You see the amount of people added to the list by just looking at the number on the side, but you add the list by clicking add. Once that is done, it says added recipient list, number is 1495, and we're not going to remove anyone, and I'm just going to do a test. sometimes it takes a little while to get the email, but we're just going to do a test right now. There we go. Send results will be given. And this is the subject, as you saw that I entered earlier. The SFGSDF test newsletter has been sent. It sent how many emails? 1, and this will now go through the process. If you want to remove somebody, I do not recommend doing it there. Here we go. The mail has now been added or received, and this is our newsletter. So, and since this is from the test network, the images will disappear, but all of these are now clickable. You can go into them. You have the social medias. Here you have the contact information added if you want. You have some titles you can add, and the user can also subscribe himself or herself from the newsletter list. This is the only place that the user actually can unsubscribe from the list, other than us removing the person from the list manually. But this is it. You see, you have the no reply feature, which suggests it's a send system. You have the subject field, which I added with added test to it because that's what I had. And this is not something you're going to use for anything. This is just to make sure that the mail is received and that it looks okay in accordance with what you want. Now that we received the test, we've verified that this newsletter looks okay, we can click the send newsletter. I cannot do this right now because then I would actually send this test to the 1495 people in the recipient list. And the difference is nothing. It will give you a send result. It will tell you that it sent 1495 emails, and you will never see an error message of persons or people in emails accounts that no longer is in use. So the list will not cultivate itself automatically. People will always be there, and in some cases people's emails have been removed and stuff like that. So people will have to cultivate that themselves. So basically this is it. We've now gone through creating and adding information and then sending the newsletter to 1495 people. The last part is it takes about half an hour to an hour to send about between 200 and 500 emails. So if you have many email recipients, it will take a while for them to get it. Just to keep that in mind. But that's it. That's the basics of the newsletter. Good luck.